From London, this is BBC News. I'm Lewis Vaughan-Jones, on air across the BBC with breaking news from the royal family. Prince Andrew has announced he will give up his royal titles. So, in the last hour, Prince Andrew has announced he will be giving up his royal titles immediately. He released a short statement, a few sentences long. I'll bring that to you now. It starts like this. In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel Forgive me, I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. So that's the statement there from Prince Andrew. My colleague Tom Simons is with me here in the studio. Tom, just talk us through that statement.
Well, so this is obviously a statement from him and not the palace, which is clearly significant, but some of the words in there do make you feel that perhaps Buckingham Palace has asked him to make this statement following discussions, as he says, with the King and the immediate and wider family. He's voluntarily relinquishing these titles, so they don't just get scrapped. They're there, but he won't use them, and one would imagine nobody else will either. His title, Prince Andrew, which, to correct myself from earlier, is something he was effectively given by the way he was born into the royal family, remains. So we would presumably continue to call him Prince Andrew, but the Duke of York goes. His Royal Highness has already been scrapped as a title. Just a bit more detail, his daughters Beatrice and Eugenie will remain princesses. The Duchess of York was an honorary title, but Sarah Ferguson will revert to being Sarah Ferguson. He keeps the property in which he lives, which is a 30-room mansion in Windsor Royal Lodge. I think he has his own lease on that property until a date in the future. The other title, or the other honour which goes or is not going to be used, is his status as a Knight of the Garter, an order founded in 1348, a sort of a prize, if you like, for public service conferred by the monarch. So a considerable blow again to Prince Andrew's status, and we've heard commentators in the last hour on BBC News say that he is somebody that will personally hurt. Why is this happening? Just to remind you really of the two scandals he's been involved with. His contacts with Jeffrey Epstein, the sex offender. He told the BBC that he'd cut off ties with Epstein after meeting him in New York in December 2010, when famously they were both photographed together. Well, since then, emails have emerged showing that he was very much in contact with Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, one of the emails he is alleged to have sent said, "We are in this together," this being the accusations against Jeffrey Epstein, and also undermines his suggestion that they were never that close. And also the perhaps less easy to understand scandal involving a Chinese alleged spy, Yang Tengbo. There are documents from various legal processes that show that he had a relationship with Yang Tengbo on the basis of trying to improve Britain's business opportunities in China. Prince Andrew has always portrayed himself as a sort of statesman in the way that he tries to find business for the UK around the world. And details of a communication channel he's supposed to have had with China's President Xi Jinping, including sending an annual birthday letter. Now, we also know, or it has been reported, that MI5 said that he shouldn't have contacts with an alleged spy. I should point out that Yang Tengbo denies all wrongdoing. So all of that has added up to the reputational problems he has faced, the previous stripping of titles, and now this statement today.
Tom, thank you so much for outlining all that. Let's run through some of the questions that still remain now there. The way that it's written, and some of our colleagues and our commentators have just been pointing out, some of the questions still remain in To what extent was this his decision? To what extent pressure from the family? And also what this means about the future of his public profile, because he is still clearly a member of the family. Sean Coughlin, our royal correspondent, saying he's not expected to be at the Christmas family gathering this year, but he still will clearly have some kind of role within the family aside from public duties. And no apology at all in this statement either. So there are still, even though there are only 5 or 6 sentences, there are still plenty more questions about it.
There are no apologies, and just to be clear, a restatement of that defence of his position. I vigorously deny the accusations against me. He doesn't say which accusations. He doesn't say anything about those. No apology, as you say. I mean, obviously the Christmas point is a big one. Christmas is political with a big P in any family, isn't it? And he wasn't at Christmas with the royal family last year, I believe. As my colleague Sean Coughlin has reported, it's been confirmed that he won't be spending Christmas with the royal family in Sandringham. He's expected to stay in his, as I said earlier, his Windsor home, Royal Lodge. He'll remain a prince, but he's not a working royal anymore. So that question has been resolved previously, really. And it is interesting that he's not being stripped of these titles. I think there is a legal mechanism for Parliament to remove his title, the Duke of York. That is not being used on the basis of this statement. He's going to simply say, I won't use it, and therefore I think nobody else will either.
And this has come, of course, after recent revelations in recent days. But, of course, as you outlined there, with those 2 ongoing stories that surrounded him, this has been a long time in the making as well.
It has. I mean, it really did start with the BBC's groundbreaking interview with him, in which he not only got himself in a lot of trouble factually, but also appeared to have quite a strange response to the questions. The famous suggestion that going on a shooting party was a fairly ordinary thing to do, being one of them. The problem with reputation, isn't it, that if it's very difficult for somebody in his position to continue to say, I did nothing wrong, when the evidence continues to mount up and there's no evidence to the contrary. And so, yes, he absolutely denies wrongdoing, and the Chinese man that he had a connection with denies all wrongdoing, but the reputation is the thing that matters. And the reputation, he uses a phrase in his statement, I think, which many ministers use when they're resigning, that the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. Now, the royal family clearly doesn't want that. He seems to accept that that is a problem, and hence this latest move.
And the commentators we've spoken to so far, just giving their immediate reaction, seem rather unanimous that there will no doubt have been considerable pressure here from inside the royal family, whether that's the king personally or other members of the family.
Yeah, we've heard from 3 very esteemed commentators on the royal family who will know better than I the kind of pressure that might have been put on Prince Andrew from, a family that knows its politics and knows and will have been advised that this is having a damaging impact, and so many questions are left. We just said that there are still outstanding questions, but this does resolve some of the other outstanding questions that were around before this statement was made. It will be difficult for Andrew, even should he want to portray himself, in any meaningful way as a member of the royal family that is doing that job. And technically that is not what he's doing anyway now. So again, another blow to his reputation.
OK, let's just bring you that statement again. A statement by Prince Andrew, we should underline, of course, not from Buckingham Palace, not from any other member of the family, not from the King. A statement from Prince Andrew, a statement by Prince Andrew. It starts like this. In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have previously said, as I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. So a relatively short statement released just about 40 minutes ago. I just want to bring you some of the instant analysis from our team, our royal team here. Our senior royal correspondent Daniela Ralph has been giving her immediate reaction, as has Sean Coughlin, our royal correspondent. Let's start with Sean just on some of the factual details to add to that. Firstly, that Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie are to retain their titles of princess. That's the children, of course. BBC understands that his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson will no longer be using the title Duchess of York. And a couple of other details from Sean, reiterating that he will remain a prince. He has that title from birth. It is the Duke of York that is the famous title that he's known right around the world, has been for so many years, that he will now no longer be using. As for his lodgings, his residence, he is expected to stay in his home in Windsor, Royal Lodge. He has his own private lease there on that property. So despite questions about where he will be living and his residence, he's expected to stay there. And just want to give you a bit of analysis from Daniela Ralph. This is her kind of immediate take. This is our senior royal correspondent. The statement from Prince Andrew is short and concise. It's not conciliatory in its tone. There is no apology, but he recognises the distraction he has become. The details of any discussions he has had with his older brother, the King, have not been revealed, but it would be safe to say the current situation was unsustainable and something had to change. Tom Simons, our correspondent, is with me, who've been just picking over the statements here, the words from Prince Andrew. Let's move, if we can, Tom, to just some of the background. Just remind us, what have some of the situations that have become unsustainable, in Daniela's words there? Something had to change. Just remind us, what are the continuous headlines here that have effectively led to this situation?
Well, continuous headlines is exactly it. The headlines just haven't stopped for really some time. He is major news, and clearly the royal family would see that not as being a good situation, having somebody who is not a frontline member of the royal family anymore still major news. And why is he major news? Well, because recent emails in the last few months have shown that when he told the BBC in 2010 that he cut off ties with Jeffrey Epstein after meeting him in New York, they were both photographed together, and clearly after that we started to hear far more allegations about Jeffrey Epstein, and we now know that he was a sex offender. That actually he was well aware of the allegations that that man was a sex offender, and he said in an email to Jeffrey Epstein, "We are in this together," which really does underpin his previous suggestions that they were close. And also, just to add to the fuel to the fire, Sarah Ferguson said she had broken off contact with Epstein, and there is some evidence now out there in sort of legal documents and that sort of thing that she hadn't broken off contact with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm afraid I don't know what her response is to those allegations, but that is one of the things that has been reported. And then this slightly stranger and deeper and more complicated concern that he might have been too close to a Chinese spy called Yang Tengbo, who has, I should say, denied all wrongdoing, and that he had sort of communications with China. Well, this week we have all the talk about a potential espionage trial not going ahead because of closeness to China. Well, that seems to have extended to this member formerly of the working royal family. And just to bring you one thing, interestingly, YouGov looked at the public opinion about Prince Andrew back in August and found that 67% of those people who were asked whether he should be stripped of his remaining royal titles said that he should, and only 13% opposed that idea. So clearly the public thinks that what has happened today, not stripped, but him effectively saying he won't use these titles, that they would support that.
Tom, thank you very much for the moment for that. I think we can speak now to historian and author Andrew Loney, who wrote entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, the unauthorised biography of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. Thanks for coming on the programme.
Not at all, pleasure.
Just first of all, your immediate reaction here to this?
Well, I'm surprised because he's a very stubborn individual, and we can see from Royal Lodge how difficult it was to extricate him. But I think just the tsunami of information that was coming out, showing that he had lied in the interview at Newsnight, the associations with Chinese spies, etc., got to a point where King Charles, who was being criticised for being weak, really had to act decisively. And I think they're hoping they can get ahead of the story by these actions. But, we'll wait to see.
And so we've had a couple of commentators on seeming to suggest pretty strongly that this would have been a significant amount of pressure from the royal family, from other members of the royal family, from the establishment within the offices there to not force, no one's used that word, but to encourage this giving up, this voluntary giving up of the titles. Is that something that would ring true with you or not?
Yes, I'm sure pressure's been put on him through his daughters. He's transferred his ambitions to his daughters. I think he wants to somehow give them a role in the royal family in future. And I think the deal would have been, if you go quietly, we will make sure they're okay.
Interesting. What about, so I just want to bring some of the other sentences of this statement, see if we can kind of glean in more information from them. Danielle Ralph, our senior royal correspondent, saying there's no apology here, there's no conciliatory tone, there's continued denials and just an acknowledgement that the accusations themselves have become a distraction. What do you make of that?
Well, this is extraordinary. I mean, the evidence is pretty overwhelming about his links with Virginia Giuffre, and of course, the recent publication of her book, or the serialization book comes out on Tuesday. I think just make that clear. I mean, I think there's chapter and verse in my book on showing the lies that he's told. So, but he's a narcissist, so he's not going to show any empathy to victims or admit to any wrong. So this is probably the best they could get out of him. But I don't think there's any doubt he's banged to rights on this, and I'm glad that something has eventually been done. It couldn't drip feed because it was infecting all the work the royal family did and undermining any support they had in the wider public.
And just to underline, of course, he says the last line of this statement, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Given your knowledge and research of him, how do you think he will be feeling and reacting now that this information is out there and public?
Well, I mean, he's been very depressed for a long time because of the stuff coming out, only really not because of the end of his reputation, but because of some of the trappings of power that he no longer has. So he'll be very upset by no longer being able to try and go around in his Knight of the Garter uniform. But he's not accepting it. He has a little group of friends who come out and say the photo is fake, etc. But the evidence is overwhelming for his involvement with Virginia Giuffre and others, and his role with Epstein. And of course, we've got to remember that the criticisms against him in terms of financial corruption when he was the special representative for trade and investment, everything gets slightly sidelined. There's a huge amount of material there, to the extent that MPs 20 years ago were calling for him to be investigated by the National Crime Agency. And I just wonder if some of this is to try and deflect from some wider accusations that could still be made.
And given he's already given up other titles, he's already no longer a working royal, does this make actually that much difference? Clearly not using the name Duke of York, which so many people know him by, will be significant. But in terms of his day-to-day life, the day-to-day life of the royal family, does this make much difference?
No, I don't think it makes much difference. I mean, he'll be upset because these things are important to him. They give him a sense of identity. But, as long as he can stay in Royal Lodge, as long as he can have his shooting weekends, I think he'll be content with this. This is probably a compromised position.
OK, I just want to throw it forward, if we could, Andrew. Where do you see this going now, given what you know of his personality, given you know of the accusations, the stories keep on coming, there's still continued calls in the US for the release of the Epstein files, that will drag on and on. What's your sense of what happens here going forward?
Well, I think there are a lot more revelations still to come out. There will be some, for example, in my paperback, but also release of Epstein material, victims coming forward, other depositions that may be unsealed. And I think that's presumably what's conditioned this response from Buckingham Palace. I mean, maybe they know, maybe they're just worried what might still more come out. I mean, he is damaged goods, but I'm afraid that there is still a lot more to emerge that I know of. And I suspect a lot more that none of us know about.
Andrew, it's been really fascinating to get your response to the statement and your insight and your views. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Thank you.
Not at all.
Let's just bring you that statement now that will be winging its way around the world. Prince Andrew confirming that he will be giving up his royal titles, Duke of York, the main one that he's known by so many people, of course, around the world. And as we were hearing just there from Andrew, one that he feels very passionate about and will be very upset to have relinquished. But he's released a short statement at 7 p.m. London time. So what is that? Just less than an hour ago. And it's a statement not from Buckingham Palace, not from the King. It's a statement by Prince Andrew. And it starts like this. In discussion with the King and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I've decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honours which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Tom Simons, our news correspondent, is with me here in the studios. We've just been sifting through not only that statement, Tom, but also some extra details we've been learning from our royal team here, our royal correspondents, just fleshing out a little bit more on what that statement means.
Yeah, I mean, with all these things, you have to sort of read between the lines with these sorts of statements from members of the royal family, and behind them, I think in this case, the palace, which must be behind this. We have concluded that the continual accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family, but then at the end of the statement, I vigorously deny the accusations against them. And incidentally, he says that this has followed discussions with the King and my immediate and wider family. We understand the Prince of Wales was consulted about this, so the King and the Prince of Wales, presumably, at least. And as always with Prince Andrew, I think some of our commentators have pointed out his view of himself. He says, as I always have, put my duty to my family and country first. And therefore, you know, again, talking about his decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. So it is a significant statement, almost certainly with the strong hand, a strong push, I think, from Buckingham Palace behind it. Though, as is often the case, the palace not wanting to, if you like, make the statement itself, make the overt move, but have a degree of lack of clarity, really, about the status of Prince Andrew, because he's simply saying that he will no longer use the title or the honours, that honour being a member of the Order of the Garter. He's also, I looked it up, Royal Knight Companion of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order, and he has a Canadian Forces decoration. So it's not entirely clear what happens with those honours. And he is not going to be asked to, so far as we understand it, leave his current home, the Windsor Home Royal Lodge, which he has a private lease which runs out in 2078. And as we've been saying, he remains a prince because he gets that, because he's born into the royal family, the son of the late Queen Elizabeth II. So that is where it stands. One would imagine that he will continue not to appear very much in public, not to have the former business role that he had as an ambassador for British business around the world. We know, because our colleagues digging around on this tell us, that he will not be spending Christmas with the royal family in Sandringham, and that is one moment in the royal calendar when, I remember being around last year when it happened, you'd expect him to appear, and he doesn't appear. So all of this are very much a blow to his personal reputation that he will know well.
Tom, thank you so much for talking us through the statement, a bit of context there and what it means. Just a little earlier, I spoke to the royal commentator and former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond. She gave us her reaction, which I'll bring you in just a moment, but just want to bring you Sean Coughlin, our royal correspondent, has just posted this saying, Prince Andrew's decision to stop using his titles was made in consultation with Prince William as well as the King. So, Prince Andrew's decision taken in line with consultations with Prince William as well as the King. Right, and let's hear now from Jenny Bond.
I think it's a great relief to the palace to get this sorted out once and for all. The pressure was becoming untenable. He was conferred the dukedom, Duke of York, on his marriage to Sarah Ferguson in 1986. From birth, obviously, he's been a prince, but not a Duke of the Realm. Of course, he is also Earl of Inverness and Baron Killyleagh. Although he refers to only one title, I imagine that he will not use those either. I was struck in the statement by the fact that the pronoun we is used quite a lot. We have decided that we must go one step further. There's been a lot of pressure put on Andrew in the last couple of days by the palace and by his brother, and I think by his nephew, Prince William. The situation had become completely untenable. It could not go on day after day, headline after headline about Andrew and distracting from the very good work that the rest of the family is doing. So something had to be done, and I'm glad that he has, we could say, fallen on his sword, but I think he's been pushed onto it. I don't think this is a decision that Andrew, quite an arrogant man, very, very fond of his status, would have willingly made without a lot of pressure.
And what do you make of the timing here, Jenny?
Well, I think it's the culmination of all the headlines, and today the headlines and the pictures of him shaking the hand of someone associated allegedly with the Chinese alleged spying scandal. It was just one thing after another. I mean, I've actually been reporting on Andrew and the Epstein scandal for 20 years, more than that, probably 25 years. The rumours have been swirling, and now it has all come to a head. And it was just too much. It was really tarnishing the whole reputation of the monarchy, and it could not be allowed to continue. And I'm very glad that Charles and I think William and the palace have decided enough is enough. What happens next, I really don't know. I don't know what happens to an ex-duke. I mean, we have the example of Edward VIII, who abdicated, but he remained Duke of Windsor for the rest of his life. Andrew will remain a prince because that is his birthright. But how he will conduct himself and whether Sarah will give up, I assume she is no longer a duchess. Will they continue to live in Royal Lodge that the King's been trying to get them out of? I don't know. I think it's all up for grabs now.
And what do you make of the decision? As you said, you pointed right at the beginning, the use of we, the sense that this was encouraged, pressure from within the family. Why is that a better way than the King appearing to act decisively, for example, and strip them?
Well, no, he is his brother, and Charles is not a vindictive man. But, you know, I think we can read between the lines here. I mean, enormous pressure has been exerted by the King and by William on him, and they've given him the way out, I suppose. I mean, I think it's actually slightly risible that he says, Andrew says, I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. My goodness me, that wasn't his decision. That was his late mother's decision, who very reluctantly sacked her son from his role. He's been putting the best gloss he can on an absolutely personally and professionally drastic situation for Andrew. And I hope now that he will just quietly disappear from public life and let the monarchy get on with doing what the royal family worked so hard to do.